What is going on, everyone, and welcome back to my channel. We are back discussing Apple TV Plus C Season 3, Episode 4, titled The Storm, an episode in which we head back to the House of Enlightenment. We see Harlan switch his sides, and Sibeth has a new army. What's going on, everyone? So excited to be back with you all and breaking down this new episode of C. Before we get into today's spoiler topics, if you haven't already, consider subscribing to the channel and hitting that notification bell. That way you don't miss out on any of my daily content. You can also give me a follow on Instagram, TikTok, and Twitter. All those links can be found in the description of this video. If you enjoyed today's review, give it a thumbs up and also share the review. It means a lot to me and I appreciate all the support. But also let me know your thoughts on this fourth episode. Was it my favorite episode? And we'll get into my reasons why, but let me know your pros, your cons, favorite moments, least favorite moments, and of course what you all hope to see in the weeks ahead. Let's talk about it in the comments. With all that being said, let's get into the breakdown. Full spoilers ahead. As we open this week's episode immediately after the events of last week, as we see Sibeth manages to escape and she's forced to put shit in her face. It's the second time this season we've seen someone do this, and it doesn't make it easier. It's still disgusting, but we know she's doing that to make her escape plan, to get the dogs to get off her scent. As we see, she leaves Paya on this journey of discovery. We'll catch up with her a little bit later in this breakdown and tie that into Magra, but let's talk about our main plot in this week's episode, which we'll start off talking about a dog named No and a baby named Wolf. As we see, Baba says his goodbye to his new friend, and he wants No to protect Wolf at all costs. As we're on our journey to enlightenment, Baba and the kids and Charlotte and Ren are on their way. As we see Kofun, he's still kind of dealing with the back injury. I thought it was still a little bit too quick on healing. Like, she stabbed him pretty good in the back, but neither way, this was a moment of kind of him acknowledging his Kofu ways as he apologizes for allowing Sibeth to escape. And we see Baba, he's a great dad. We know he was going to say this. He wasn't going to be all upset with Kofun, but he tells him, you don't have to apologize. You were doing the best thing as any father would. So we see that a little apology still doesn't make it up for me, but let me know what you all thought about that. But I did think it was interesting that he says to Kofun, Kofool, stay alive. I think that is something that, again, y'all know how I feel about Baba Voss, and I think he will ultimately sacrifice himself for his children. I might be wrong. I hope I'm wrong, because I love Baba. But as we move on to the rest of this journey, we return back to seeing Ranger and Lou as Baba tells them their plans, as we learn that Ranger actually has connections to Tormada, and we kind of learn later in the episode that he used to experiment on him or try to get the sight and all that different stuff. So we see where this, at first I thought it was going to be like it's his brother or his cousin or his dad, because we know there has a lot of dad themes within this show, but we find out why Ranger can be trusted, because you all know in episode 1 I was like, I don't know if Ranger, I know they have good connections, but where does this friendship stem from? And based on their past, at least I can speak for myself. I now 100% trust Ranger, and I know that he has a bloodthirst for Tormada. Let me know your thoughts on all of that. But as we get back into the discussion here, we see them finally make it to enlightenment, and Baba and Kofun and Ranger create a distraction while the others try to rescue the sighted children. Hanawa comes into Sibeth, and we see her, not gonna lie, that Shiva character, I think was her name. I think we saw her back in season 1 when they met all their other brothers and sisters. The acting of that actress wasn't that great, but I don't want to put her to stand out, but I wasn't a fan of her acting. Neither way, she finds out about Omen's death, and we get this moment here where, I'm not going to lie, this episode had a lot of lulls, a lot of pacing issues, but the highlight of this episode was Baba Voss's brutality as he was killing the rest of the soldiers. And it was this one move where he like grabbed the head and cracked it, and then he put the knife on the ground and tripped the, I mean, listen, whenever Baba gets in that work and that hand-to-hand combat, it's always a great moment for me. But again, that was probably the highlight, because the rest of the episode, to me, the pacing was just a little bit off, and a couple scenes I could have went without. But as that's going on, let's catch up what's going on with Harlan in this episode. As him and the ambassador head back to Travantian's territory, Harlan meets his men and sneaks his way in. He finds the opportunity to find one of the higher ups, and he tells one of the leaders of the Triangle about the bombs. And so far, you're like, oh, maybe he's going to get them to turn around. But we see that this is all a part of a ploy. As we I will say, this was an interesting story thread, and this is how they're incorporating the ambassador into the story. I never really put this into the parallels where she mentions, well, I think we've all known that Harlan had a thing for Magra, but it's finally addressed out loud, at least for the first time in my knowledge. He loves Magra. And we see the ambassador say to him, well, I love you, but you're in a marriage. And it's an interesting swirl of this love triangle. We know Magra doesn't love Harlan at all. Her heart is truly all in on Baba, but I never really could put those two and two together in regards to how she, and of course we just met her this season, but it is interesting to see her being in love with someone whose heart's already taken. But I'm very interested to see. I have a feeling that the ambassador is going to end up helping Harlan, and Harlan's going to end up maybe even sacrificing himself, because he's always been about himself, but he always has done it in a sense of care for Magra. So I think it's going to all come full circle. Let me know your thoughts on all of that. But as they're setting up all these meetings and conversations going on here, we see the Travantians government coming at odds and ultimately having this civil war, and we see Tormada lights a bomb and kills the remaining people that went against his story and went against his passions and obviously his plans. And we ultimately find out that the ambassador is working with the bank, who's working with Tormada, and they are giving Harlan a choice. You can either go back to Paya, you can be a prisoner, or you can die. And we ultimately see him make the decision. But again, I don't think he's betraying Magra, because you all remember I've been saying there's going to probably be some key player betraying one of our main characters. I think he's going to play the part and eventually come about a way of betraying the Travantians and all that different stuff. I could be wrong, but they have built Harlan to, at first last season, we were like, we can't trust this guy. This is obviously a little finger situation. But as season 2 and as this season have shown, I think his love for Magra is what's keeping him, morally speaking, at a good character length. Again, he's a great character, but I think he's going to ultimately make that turn. But let me know what you all think about that. But wrapping up to one of the more less interesting elements of this episode, and the lulls whenever we checked in with these characters, the episode lost its little bit of momentum. And that's what's going on with Magra as she's talking to June about her shouldn't have killed her sister many times ago, but she never had the stomach to do it. And they're intercutting that storyline and her training. And we see Sibeth, who is on this survival journey path as she is trying to survive, and there's this rattlesnake that she kills ultimately, and we see her talking and yelling I can see you, bitch, I'm gonna get you. That stuff to me was just I love the actress that plays Sibeth, but that whole plot and that whole thing, I'm are they trying to make her have a redemption story? But no, we end up ending the episode with Magra talking to the rest of the governments, and they have to rally all the troops. She's saying, get the remaining of the witchfinders, and we see one of the leader of the witchfinders talking about, oh, the queen's here. I didn't expect you to come meet us here, Magra. And then lo and behold, it's Sibeth, who's went on this whole journey, who now thinks she's almost like she was reborn when she was taking that bath in the blood and eating the snake and all that. But she's like, oh, you know who the queen is, or whatever she says. So she has her army. We'll see. I would find it very hard for the witchfinders to just automatically switch on a dime. I know they don't like Magra, but at the same time, your Sibeth was for the Sided. She was for the cause for a bit. So it's going to be interesting to see how she's obviously a master at manipulation. So she's going to probably talk it up and be like, we can handle our problems later on, but we got to get Magra off the throne so I can be the one true queen, and I'll bring back all the old ways of the witchfinders, and all the Sided are no longer, should be valued. So we'll see how she's going to manipulate the situation. But overall, this episode was my least favorite, if I'm being honest. Like I said, it was a lot of, and this is episode 4, which means we have 5, 6, 7, and 8, 4 more episodes, and it feels like it's a lot of buildup. I hope it has a satisfying conclusion, but I'm thinking we should be picking stuff up at this point, right? But we'll see. Again, I wasn't the biggest fan. I didn't hate the episode by any means, but it was just one of my least favorite because the pacing, and again, that Shiva actress, I didn't like her, and all the stuff with Sibeth and going on with Magra. It was just one of the episodes where I'm just not really feeling it. But hey, that's just my thoughts. Let me know yours in the comments below. What did you love about the episode? What did you not like about the episode? What do you hope to see in next week's episode? Let's talk about it in the comments below. I appreciate every single one of you all continuing to watch these reviews. I'm very aware that they don't get as many views as some of my other recaps or breakdowns, but for everyone that likes, shares, comments, it means the world to me, and I appreciate you all. So with that being said, if you haven't already, make sure you're giving this video a like, a share, a comment, and of course, if you haven't subscribed, come and join the community by clicking this button. Watch my other C reviews, watch my most recent breakdown, and we'll catch you all on the next video.